Right now, stop reading for a second and look around your room. You have clothes you haven't worn in months, food in the fridge you'll throw away next week, a phone that works perfectly but a small part of you already wants the next one. And yet, sitting in the middle of everything you own, you probably don't feel rich. You feel like you don't have enough. You do. Statistically, you have more possessions than a medieval king, more food variety than any human who lived before 1950, more information in your pocket than the Library of Alexandria held, and still that voice, not enough, need more. So here's the question: why do you never feel like you have enough? The most common answer is also the laziest. It's human nature to want more. We're wired for scarcity. Greed is just part of being alive. Except, in 1966, anthropologist Marshall Solins published a paper that made economists furious. He had been studying the few remaining hunter-gatherer societies on Earth, and he called them something that still upsets people today: the original affluent society. Not because they had a lot, because they needed very little. Solins calculated that hunter-gatherers spent about 15 to 20 hours a week getting food. The rest of their time was conversation, rest, making things, being with people. When they had enough to eat, they stopped. They didn't work to get ahead. They didn't save for next year. They didn't look at their neighbor's shelter and think, I need a bigger one. A Kungman was once asked why his people didn't farm. He said, "Why should we plant when there are so many mongongo nuts in the world?" The point isn't that they were wiser or more evolved than you. The point is that their social system didn't reward accumulation. In a world without stored food, ownership was a burden, not a strategy. Moving camp was easier when you could carry everything you owned in one trip. Accumulating more would have made you slower, not richer. The feeling of enough might be the default human state. Wanting more is what needs explaining. So how do you make a society where no one accumulates? Anthropologist James Suzman spent years living with the Jew Hansi, a Kung group in southern Africa. He noticed something strange. When a hunter made a big kill, he didn't brag. He was teased relentlessly. The meat was distributed across the entire camp. Everyone got a share. And the next time someone else made a kill, the first hunter got an equal share back. If a hunter tried to keep too much for himself, something worse happened. The group stopped interacting with him. People didn't share food when he was hungry. They didn't include him in conversations around the fire. In a society of 30 to 50 people, social exclusion was a death sentence. You had to be able to trust everyone, because anyone could be the one who finds water when the river dries up. Anthropologists call this demand sharing. You don't wait to be offered. You ask, and the person can't refuse. It sounds exhausting to a modern ear, and it was. But it achieved something remarkable. It made sure that no family ever went hungry while another had surplus. And it made sure that no one could ever accumulate enough to dominate others. This wasn't generosity. This was structural equality enforced by social rules. You weren't allowed to own more than others because owning more would mean someone else had less. And in a small, mobile group, inequality was the fastest way to destroy trust. The archaeology backs this up. For 99% of human existence, burial sites show almost no wealth differences. People were buried with the same kinds of items: shell beads, stone tools, maybe a piece of ochre. No lavish tombs. No one was buried with gold. No one was buried with nothing. Then, around 10,000 years ago, something shifted. In the Natufian culture of the Levant, archaeologists found the first evidence of grain storage. People began harvesting wild wheat and barley and holding it in one place instead of eating it immediately. This small decision changed everything. Storage created a new possibility. You could have more than others. If your harvest was good and someone else's failed, you could survive the winter and they might not. The incentive to accumulate became real. In the early agricultural sites like Catalho, UK, some houses have built-in storage rooms and elaborate burials. Others have nothing. The first inequality showed up not in palaces or armies, but in a mud brick room full of grain. The skeleton evidence is blunt. When archaeologists compare hunter-gatherer bones to early farmer bones, the farmers are shorter, have more cavities, more arthritis, more signs of malnutrition. Agriculture fed more people, but it fed them worse. And it introduced something humans had never dealt with before, the knowledge that some people had more than you. Then money came, and it turned a manageable problem into an infinite one. In a world of physical things, enough has natural boundaries. You can only eat one dinner. You can only wear one coat. Your body tells you when you've had enough food, warmth, or sleep. But money isn't food or warmth. Money is a universal claim on future anything. And for a brain that evolved to track resources in a world of 50 people, money is the ultimate hack. In the early 2000s, neuroscientists Kent Berridge and Terry Robinson made a crucial distinction. They showed that the brain's dopamine system isn't responsible for liking something. It's responsible for wanting it. The two systems are separate. You can want something intensely without liking it much when you get it. That gap between wanting and liking is where addiction lives, and that gap is exactly what money exploits. When you see a new phone, your dopamine system activates strongly for the anticipation of owning it. The actual moment of opening the box, much weaker. That's not a personal flaw. That's how wanting circuits evolved. In the ancestral environment, wanting more meant seeking food and mates, and once you got them, the wanting stopped. But in a world of infinite products and abstract currency, the wanting never gets the signal to stop. The circuit keeps running. But it's not just biology. It's also a $600 billion industry. The global advertising industry spends about $600 billion every year. Its primary function is to make you feel that something is missing. Not by lying about products, by changing the baseline of what enough looks like. Before the 1920s, the average American saw maybe 200 advertisements a day. Most of them were local signs and newspaper listings. By 2024, the average person was estimated to see between 5,000 and 10,000 commercial messages daily. You didn't notice this shift because it happened gradually, but the effect is measurable. Every ad is a small subtraction from your sense of sufficiency. The industry's own pioneers understood this. In 1927, a marketing executive named Bruce Barton wrote that the purpose of advertising was to create dissatisfaction, not to inform people about products to make them uncomfortable with what they already had. A century later, that's still the business model. So here's where we are. You evolved in a world where enough existed. Your social system once enforced that enough. Your biology still expects it. But you live in a world engineered to prevent it. Not by accident, but by design. Does this mean we should all go back to hunting and gathering? Of course not. Demand sharing works in groups of 50, not cities of 8 million. And the Kung weren't living in paradise. They had real hunger during dry seasons. Demand sharing itself was a source of stress. You could never call anything truly your own. Some pre-agricultural societies, like the Ertebal culture in Northern Europe, did show signs of status differences based on access to rich shell middens. The hunter-gatherer model had real limits. The point isn't that the past was perfect. The point is that the present is not neutral. The feeling of not enough is not a natural law. It's a product of specific historical changes, the invention of storage, the abstraction of value into money, and the industrialization of desire. These changes made modern civilization possible. They also made mass dissatisfaction inevitable. You are not failing at contentment. Contentment has been systematically engineered out of your environment. The question is not why you can't feel satisfied. The question is how anyone could, under these conditions. So what do you do with this? You can't opt out of the system, but you can recognize that the voice saying you need more is not your voice. It's a signal shaped by thousands of years of institutional design, amplified by the most powerful advertising machine in history. Your ancestors, with 30 possessions and no savings account, knew something that we've forgotten, not because they were noble or pure, because their social structure made it possible to feel complete. They lived in a world where once you had enough, that was it. No one was telling you that you needed more. Notice that the Kung man didn't say he was happy with his mongongo nuts. He asked a better question. Why should I plant when there's enough? The emphasis is on enough. That word, in his language, carried the weight of a world we no longer inhabit. So look around your room one more time. You have enough. You've always had enough. The question isn't whether you own enough. It's whether you can still feel it.